So today we're going to have a short talk on the amygdala. So the amygdala, this is very important. We have two parts to our brain. We have long-term thinking, and then we have short-term thinking. Long-term thinking generally is understood as frontal cortex. Short-term thinking is known as amygdala. There is more to it, brain stem, all the different places of the anatomy, but basically monkeys and basically every mammal, most animals, will have this. This is a primitive nervous system. Humans have a highly developed frontal cortex, so we can think long term. Beyond minutes, beyond hours, we can think days, months, years into the future, and that's why we have great pyramids. That's why we have things. We, as humans, have a frontal cortex. Okay? The gateway to our short-term thinking is the amygdala. And so, in the brain, you have this, and you have this. So this is amygdala, and this is the frontal cortex. And what I'd like to say about this long-term thinking, so we have different parts of our brain responsible for different things. Big part of our brain responsible for long-term, small part of our brain responsible for short-term thinking. And so, if you go to a little monkey, it's going to have like this. That's going to be in like a monkey. And that's why monkeys don't go to school. That's why they don't become psychologists. That's why they don't build big things. They don't have that development. So, monkey, human. But they have something. So monkeys, they're not entirely dumb. They definitely have some capacity, but far less of a human. So what do we do with long-term thinking? Long-term thinking, we are talking about days, weeks, months. So there's some things like financial planning. Right? Things like school. Relationships. If you're on like a short fling with someone and you're only going to spend one night with them, are you going to buy them a $20,000 diamond? Probably not. I don't recommend short flings, by the way. It's not a robust way to build a relationship. But if you're going to do it, you're probably not going to buy them a $20,000. That's your frontal cortex. Why would you spend $20,000 on a short-term relationship? It doesn't make any sense. But people do it. But they're not using the frontal cortex to make that decision. Frontal cortex will decades, months, years, hundreds of years, thousands of years, right? Great pyramids, they had the great wisdom to use sandstone. I don't know what the Egyptians knew, but I can tell you their great pyramids are still here in Egypt. And I bet you long after our skyscrapers are gone and dust, they'll still be here. Because they had very long thinking. They knew sandstone doesn't age. Whereas our modern society, we build things that probably won't be here in that long. Very powerful frontal cortex. Short-term thinking, amygdala. What kind of things does a short-term thinking? Just call it out. What are some examples of short-term thinking? that are seconds, minutes, hours. Yeah. Eat. What else? Like hunger. What other short-term thinking? Someone punches you in the face, you're gonna contemplate, there's a fist coming towards my head. Wonder why they would do that. Is that what you're gonna do? Or are you gonna react, right? So can't fight. So like acute danger. Fear. All the things that go into acute danger. Sometimes you gotta, get in a fight. You have to. If there's a tiger, you're gonna run away. You're not gonna think, is this the right place for us to go? The thirst. Fight, flight, or freeze. Which are all related to acute danger. So these are the short-term functions that are basic human needs. Procreation, sex. You just think of a mouse. Think of what they do. They sleep, they procreate, they eat, and they run away. That's kind of their life. And all humans have that. That's all responsible for the amygdala. The frontal cortex is responsible for the long-term thinking. So what happens in the addiction, you'll notice short-term doesn't mean dumb. You gotta write this down. Not dumb. Because it's about short-term thinking. You can be very clever. If I lock you in a room, don't let you out, and food's on the other side, you're going to be really clever about getting to the other side of that door. Right? Because your survival depends on it. So, what we want to help you understand is that something happens with addiction, and really any mental, let's say like your thing. Yesterday I was a bit stressed out. I ate I ate a bag of chips. I really shouldn't have. I'm trying to lose weight. But I ate the bag of chips. So what happened there? My long-term thinking knows I'm trying to lose weight, knows it's not healthy for me, but I did the short-term thing. And what happens is that under stress, under the normal situation, the frontal cortex runs the show. The frontal cortex looks after the short-term needs and the long-term needs. So then there doesn't need to be any amygdala involved. So we're calm, we're relaxed. But under stress, so if I draw this thing with stress, it goes the opposite. The amygdala begins to control the frontal cortex. You have to have some kind of way to shut down. Which one's faster, amygdala or frontal cortex? Which part do you think is faster? Amygdala. Because fist coming towards your face, thinking takes time. But you have to position yourself for safety. You don't have time. So the amygdala will turn off your frontal cortex when there is stress. Amygdala will turn off your frontal cortex when there is stress. And in the normal situation, relaxed, in a relaxed state, frontal cortex takes over. When you're relaxed, your big brain is working, your small brain is not active. When you're stressed, your big brain stops working and your small brain starts working. And all these priorities become much more important. And now what happens with chronic stress? With chronic stress, you are what you think and you are what you do. With chronic stress, what we notice is anything you use in your brain, if you use it a lot, it grows. And if you don't use something, it shrinks. It's called neuroplasticity. The smartphone generation, in their brain, they have a bigger place for the thumb than people of my generation. Literally, you can see their thumb, nervous system, it's bigger than mine, in my brain, in their brain. That's what happens when you use it a lot. My cousin, they can type out an essay with their thumbs. And I can't type that fast with 10 fingers, right? So that's what it is. Your brain, you use it and it grows. So if you overuse your survival instinct, that's what amygdala is. If you overuse your survival instinct, the amygdala grows, that system gets stronger, and your frontal cortex shrinks. So with chronic stress, you naturally become more of a short-term thinker. And now let's say in a stressful situation you learn how to drink. Okay? Stress, this happens, and this, your only way of resolving this is alcohol, drugs, bag of chips, whatever your coping thing is. A very interesting thing happens. In your brain, the amygdala, before it was like, air. So breathe. This is the hierarchy. Breathe, then thirst, then go to washroom. Because, Lord of the Rings, the ending just wouldn't come. And I had drank like a large pot. And do you think I was paying attention to the ending? Or do you think I was paying attention to my bladder exploding? But I sat there and I didn't pee my pants, so I had some frontal cortex. But barely. So thirst, go to washroom. Or any of you have been constipated, you can't really think of much else. Food, sleep, sex. These are kind of loosely in this order. This is the order of the priorities, but for the short term, the amygdala. But if you chronically cope with something and that becomes in your mind, survival. Alcohol has helped a person survive. Okay, alcohol. All of a sudden, it gets inserted in there as like an error because you don't need alcohol. But if you talk to any alcoholic, they sure do. So now, alcohol becomes a priority. Just as important as the food, just as important as the thirst, just as important as the air that you breathe. And so I'll ask everyone, if you want to experience your amygdala, hold your breath starting now. Take a big breath in, hold the breath, and just keep it in. And I want you to pay attention to what is happening in your brain. What's your thoughts about? Keep holding, keep holding. Close your eyes if you like, but just keep holding and notice what's happening in your mind. What are you thinking about? Just notice it. Keep holding if you can. Notice when it turns negative. Notice what's happening. And then relax your breath. What'd you notice? What'd you notice? Don't talk all at once.
All you were thinking about was your breathing.
Couldn't think about much else, right? And the longer it goes, the more crazy and intense the mind gets because it's important. So that's your amygdala. If you want to experience your amygdala, this is what I tell families who want to understand why their alcoholic family members do what they do. I tell them go without food for 2-3 days and notice what happens to your thought content. Then you'll understand the person with alcohol, because the way you want food after 2-3 days, that's how much they want alcohol, because it's been repetitively used enough to become as important as food. And that's why people are like, why don't you just stop? When this happens, alcohol becomes an allergy. When alcohol is this important and it's hardwired into your brain, it's like an allergy. You can't unwire it when it becomes that important. And when you're starting at this point, your frontal cortex is pretty weak, your amygdala is really strong. Well, this is why you understand that relapse happens a lot on the journey towards health, because you can get it back, you can restore that relationship. That process is called recovery. You can get it back, but it takes time. And right after the recovery center, I tell families, just take it easy on the person, because they haven't made it back. So like a family member unloading on them about everything they've ever done badly is very likely going to put them back in this state. It's a back and forth. It's not just, you're suddenly fixed. People think you go to treatment and you're fixed. But actually it's kind of a back and forth. And then over time, you're more over here, less over there, and over more time, you can stay over here, and over more time, as long as you stay abstinent and stay into your recovery, you can be as healthy as anyone who doesn't have a problem, probably healthier. So when alcohol or drugs or gambling or problem behaviors that we all have codependency, okay? This is not just alcohol, codependent behaviors. I just can't breathe if I can't talk to mom. Codependency. Like, it'll kill you. Right? It's not just alcohol. The act of this thing becoming as important, whatever that is, and basically, recovery is when recovery becomes one of your survival behaviors. It's what you go to. That's why we repeat. Surrender. We're constantly talking about managing, because you need recovery to become programmed into the brainstem. And then you're fine. So, this is the amygdala. This is the frontal cortex and the amygdala. And how do you know that the amygdala is on in somebody? What are the signs of an amygdala being fired? Can you think of some? Maybe just think of someone who's under stress. The heart rate is up. The face is red. Breathing shallow. Blood pressure is high. Depending, however, because you can also get, freeze responses, which slow you down. And so you can always see people with amygdalas who are active. Do you think when someone's amygdala is active, it's a good time to talk to them about a long-term problem? Is it the time to talk to them about really anything other than calming down the amygdala? But how many of us have tried to talk to someone about when they're clearly out of their window of tolerance, right? They're out of their window, they're into their amygdala. How many of us have tried to talk to somebody and convince them of something, sell them something, buy something, engage in any long-term activity? Does it go well? The first step is to deactivate the amygdala, to ground. And that's what the things in recovery we have to teach. Family members have oftentimes a very highly active amygdala. Maybe it doesn't involve drinking, but their amygdala is very active. So then we have to find ways to support them. Because in their amygdala, they're going to be hard on your recovery. They're gonna react. They're not thinking long term, right? Families, they want a person with addiction to do well. That's why they care. When their amygdala is active, they just say everything that's harmful and hurtful. So we have to see amygdala in other people. And instead of, hey, that person's mad, change your vocabulary. Think about saying, that person's amygdala is activated. I wonder what could be going on. How can we calm that down? Rather than saying they're mad or you're mad or this or that, the amygdala seems a little, what can we do? When you change the language, you never grew up with the word amygdala. You grew up with the word mad. Have you ever hey, you're mad. Are you mad at me? Has anyone ever had someone say that to them? Does that make you mad? It does, right? It's like, oh, you my psychologist. My brother said this to me. He's like, you're not my therapist. My brother. Stop acting like a therapist. It's annoying, right? You got to use words that are. It's helpful to use words that are not in anyone's vocabulary growing up. And then you just think to yourself, okay, this is a sign of the amygdala firing. How can we quiet it down? Watch for it in others. Go home in this week. Try to notice a couple of people in the train. Notice whose amygdala is firing. Just observe it and be like, oh yeah, this person. How do you know? Okay, well they're this. The more you can see it in others, the more you can see it in yourself. So this is the concept of the amygdala. And the process of doing this, of healing this, does it happen in one day? 1 month? It heals? No. It takes time. It doesn't take 20 years, but it takes more than 6 weeks in a treatment center. Or I love this. It's like a severe person with addiction. Can I just do weekly classes, 1 hour? Hard for me to teach everything you need to know in weekly classes. I'll try, but it's a mild addiction that responds to that. So so if I've misspoke, please forgive me. I will we will leave it at that for today.